What's going on, E-World? Good morning time, good afternoon time, good evening time, whatever the case may be in your part of the world. So I'm going to go ahead and get this camera set up. Today, I'm going to be discussing series parallel battery combinations and why you would want to know that type of skill. Because you could be able to make your own battery system out of 2 or 3 different batteries instead of buying one battery. You know, this is a DIY channel, and DIY means sometimes you do what you got to do to save yourself some money. All right, let's get it started. Here we have 4 batteries, and I'm going to use these as a visual. These batteries are 12-volt batteries, 8 amp hour. So the volts is 12 volts. Their capacity is 8 amp hour. All right. There's 2 different ways these batteries can be connected. The first is parallel. Parallel means you connect all the negatives together and all the positives together. Now, if you look at this battery, the blue is the negative and the red is the positive. And yeah, we know normally that's represented by black, but on this battery it's blue. Okay, just so as a visual, you know, this is the negative side, this is the positive side. So if we were going to hook these batteries in parallel, I'm going to situate them like this. And you would have to imagine that we're going to take a wire or a metal rod or plate or whatever, and we would be connecting all the negatives together on that side, all the positives together on this side. Now, once we hook those batteries together like that, the voltage, because it's parallel, the voltage would stay the same. All right? The capacity, which was 8 amp hours for one battery, would add up and increase. Okay? So because these are all 8 amp hours and we have 4 of them, you simply do the math. 4 times 8 would give us 32 amp hours. So we would still have a 12-volt battery, but it is now 32 amp hours. 8 plus 8 is 16, plus another 8 is 24, plus another 8 is 32. That's how we got 32 amp hours out of all 4 of these 12-volt batteries. We increased the capacity, voltage. So remember, in parallel, voltage stays the same, amps or current or capacity adds up. All right? That is parallel. Next, we're going to do series. And in series, you're taking the positive from one battery, connecting it to the negative of another battery, and you build on to that. So here's our first battery. All right, negative and positive. So if we wanted to put another battery in series with this battery, we would take a jumper and connect it from the positive side of this battery to the negative side of this battery. Once we've done that, this is no longer a 12-volt battery. This is a 24-volt battery. The 2 12s. However, your negative and your positive would now be, you don't pay this any attention because there's a jumper there. So this would now be your main positive, and this would be your main negative. So the negative on your first battery and the positive on your last battery is now your main source. Okay? So at this negative and this positive, this would be 24 volts. All right? We add another one in series from the positive of this one to the negative of this one, and we now have a 36-volt battery if we use the negative of the first battery and the positive of the last battery. It's 36 volts. You with me? 12, 24, 36. The last one, we'll add a jumper from the positive of that one to the negative of that one. And we now have a 48 volt battery. So remember, in series, the voltage adds up. That's how we got 48 volts now. However, the capacity, which is 8 amp hours, stays the same. So it's the total opposite. So we now have a 48 volt battery pack, but it's only 8 amp hour. All right. And we all know if we were running a 48 volt pack, 8 amp hours wouldn't get us much on the range side. So let's say we wanted to double the capacity of this 48 volt pack. We would need entirely another set, just like this set. We would need 4 more of these batteries, and we would need to also put those in series to make those 48 volts. However, we would put this set in parallel with our other hypothetical set over here. So, and by putting them in parallel, the voltage would stay the same, but the capacity would add up. So with 2 of these sets, we'd have a 48 volt, 16 amp hour at that point. Okay, because the capacity would be double. Now, if I was to take these batteries and do that same series parallel configuration with these, 2 of these in series is 24 volts. Still 8 amp hour because it's in series. Capacity stays the same. All right, but we got another set over here in series. So this is another 24 volt set in series. However, if we put this 24 volt set in parallel with the first 24 volt set, we now have 24 volts in total with 16 amp hour. Okay, this setup here would be a series parallel configuration because you're doing both. You have the 12 volts in series, and you have entirely another set of the 12 volts in parallel. So actually 24 volts in parallel, because these two 12 volts over here is 24 volts. These two over here, 24 volts. You got it in parallel. It's now 16 amp hour, 24 volts. All right. So just remember, in series, voltage adds up. In parallel, the current, wait a minute. In series, voltage adds up, current stays the same. In parallel, voltage stays the same, the current or capacity adds up. It's the total opposite, okay? That's all you have to remember. So, yep, you can go back and rewind that. You understand, but when you're running them in series, you're going to be putting a jumper in between the positive one and the negative of the other. Now, you also have to remember, when you're connecting these batteries in series or parallel, your jumper wires that you're connecting them with have to be the right gauge. You can't just put a little 20 gauge wire in between both of these terminals, because you wouldn't be able to get the full current of this battery with a little skinny wire. And I recommend, whenever you're running e-bike batteries, whether it be series or parallel, at least use, well, I'm not going to say at least, unless I'm saying 8 gauge. At least use an 8 gauge. However, I recommend using a 4 gauge. You want to use a nice thick old power wire. And let's see. I believe I have some 4 gauge. Yeah, under here I can show you what 4 gauge looks like. This is 4 gauge wire. See that? That's 4 gauge. 8 gauge is half of that. Now, at the same time, the same thing applies to wire gauges. When you run 2 8-gauge wires together like that, 2 of them, 2 8s make a 4. And in this case, 2 4 gauges together like that, 2 4, that makes a 2-gauge wire. Alright? So yeah. Same thing when it goes to that, because that's, we were talking about current here and how much current can flow. So if I was to double up on these 4-gauge wires, I would now have a 2-gauge wire. And if I were to double up on 2 8-gauge wires, that would in turn be a 4-gauge wire. If somebody asks me what's better, 2 8 gauges or 1 4 gauge, I would tell them there is no better. They're exactly the same. There is no difference. Okay? The only thing that may change is the physical size of the wires. 2 8 gauges may help you as far as routing that wire, as opposed to this 1 thick 4-gauge wire. Or this 1 4-gauge wire may be better for you instead of running 2 8s. It all depends on the application. Alright? So that is it. That is series parallel when it comes to batteries. And I'm going to get back. I'm going to start all over again, because I have 360 videos right now, and they're not in any type of order. I may have a couple DIY videos in the beginning, and then another miscellaneous video or a riding video, then another DIY video, then a riding video. So I want to start over fresh. Like I say, right now you have to go searching through 360 videos to find the video on how to do this or how to do that. And believe you me, in those 360 videos, I have a video on doing just about everything when it comes to this e-bike stuff. So just don't think because my last 20 or 30 videos have been about riding, because it's summertime and I like to get out and ride myself, that's all my channel is about. My channel started off being solely DIY. I tried to teach people about every aspect of e-bikes and e-biking as I could. As I learned, I was, teaching what I was learning at the same time when it comes to these e-bikes. And yeah, so you can go back on, if you see any videos about Frank, way back in my video library, Frank, I was building Frank, was a regular e-bike that I modded. Frank was originally a 48 volt e-bike. I upgraded Frank to 70 volts and got that. Actually was a Zugo Rhino. By the time I was finished with Frank, Frank was doing 52 miles an hour with all, and I'll say inexpensive, I used to use the word cheap, but all inexpensive parts. Frank didn't have any QS motors or any Sabaton controllers. Frank had a cheap Chinese controller that I actually found a good one that worked out pretty well. Still was only 70 bucks at the end of the day. I had a 1500 watt Chinese motor, no name, that I upgraded the phase wires on and ran more power through it. And Frank did pretty well, despite the limited amount of money that I spent on Frank and the, inferior quality parts that I used on him. He still did really good. So check out some of those videos on Frank. This thing here, I hate to say it because I'm a DIY guy and I'm Cheap Charlie and I like to do everything for cheap. I've spent pretty much full price on everything for this bike except building it and the labor. As far as the parts, everything was bought straight up brand new, and I spent a ton of money on this thing. I just thought about it recently, and this e-bike has cost me more than my last 3 vehicles, my last 3 petrol vehicles that I bought, because I got all of my petrol vehicles with some type of, you know, something was wrong with them. So I got them for a great steal of a deal, and I fixed them myself. And like I said, I saved tons of money. At the same time, on this thing, I didn't save anything because I wasn't patient enough to shop around and find parts for the low and, you know, find things used or on Facebook Marketplace for the cheap. Now I pay top dollar for everything on this bike, and like I said, it costs more than the last 3 petrol vehicles that I bought all together. And one of those vehicles is a Mercedes, so yeah. Anyway, that's it for today. I will be doing some live streams as far as DIY. I have some Q&A sessions where you can you know, chat with me real time and ask me whatever you want to ask me. As far as my Patreon, I do have a Patreon page. My Patreon, although I have not been giving it any love, is still in effect, guys. And originally that Patreon was for my Patreon members were able to contact me, and I would give them video calls or first-hand, one-on-one, you know, tech advice. And like I said, if they needed a video chat on how to do this, repair that, whatever, they could get that. So I do have a Patreon. I will be getting back on top of that channel and updating it and making sure my Patreon members get some top-notch service and get a lot of, you know, perks that just my normal subscribers don't get. So Patreon members, those that I still have on my Patreon, don't fret. If you're a Patreon member, do know you can call me at any time, ask me anything. I'm here for you whenever. So feel free, as a Patreon member, you have that right to call me no matter when, about no matter what. And I got you. All right? So that goes for my Patreon, guys. So that's it for this video. I'm going to be starting all over, as I said, on DIY. We getting back into some hardcore DIY. Real quick, I want to go over some little changes that I made to my bike. Lately, if you can see, I got some flavor on my wheel spokes. Every other spoke is red, black, red, black, red, black, and on both sides. So that actually make it look like it's red, red, black, black. But yeah, same thing for the rear, red, black, red, black. I think it looks okay, but you be the judge. We got our red chain back on and new derailleur. Let's see, up here we got our old faithful rear view cam that I'm never getting rid of because this thing comes in handy. Oops. I just accidentally hit the turn signals on my little light back there, and for a wireless turn signal, I think that works really good. You can find that on one of my YouTube videos. Also has some kind of weird boat horn, as I call it. It also has an alarm on it, and it has different sequences of lights. Got the fast blink, the slow blink, and it also has an accelerometer in it. So when you stop, it gets really bright, and it's basically a brake light, an automatic brake light. So as soon as it feels that you're slowing down, the brake light comes on. And that works really well. I think I paid like 35 bucks for that. So it has a little switch up here on the handlebars, so you can use the turn signals. And yeah, that's that. My headlight, if anybody's never saw that, that's an inexpensive headlight that works really well. I think I paid 14 bucks for that headlight. It's super bright. It works on any voltage from 12 all the way up to 96 volts. Right now I have it on a relay. And as you can see, I'm using my goggles as a headlight lens. I think that works pretty good. It's my speaker up there. And it might be dead. Oh no, it's not. And I'm going to figure out how to program that light so it stays red. I'm sure there's a way to do it. Haven't played with it long enough to figure that out. But yeah, that's my waterproof speaker from Altec Lansing. It's called a Hydro Blast. Like I said, it's waterproof and all that good stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much it. As you see, we still got the bike seat on there. And I tried to tell people how good this bike seat is. If you're going to have a bike seat, this is the one to have. It's super comfortable, memory foam. I mean, as for a bike seat, it is a really good bike seat. And it happens to match my bike, red and black, red and black. As always, I love red and black. Then these are my little cheap mirrors I got from Walmart, Wally World, of course, 14 bucks at Wally World. And they even have little flashing lights or solid light on there. I like them because sometimes, just like now, my battery's dead on my rear view cam and I got to go back to the mirrors. And yes, this mirror is on my throttle side. As you can see, I modded the grip. I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, I had to put like a little cut in there so this grip over here can am I in 0? Yeah, so this grip over here can turn and is not affected, doesn't hit that mirror. That's one good thing I like about this display. I call it the Andy Kirby display. I forget what the true model of this display is, but I love it because on the miles per hour side there is a red circle that goes around. The circle closes as you go faster. Same thing with the power side. The circle increases as you do more power, but it also has a 0 as far as the gear selections. And when it's in 0, there's no throttle. That's great. That's a nice safety feature, so you don't accidentally whiskey throttle when you're just sitting double parked or whatever. And as the little kids do in this neighborhood, come running up to you and twist your throttle. So yeah, it actually you can actually go through 1, 2, 3 up to 5. So I kind of like that display, and I like the coloring of it as opposed to that UKC. It's all bright white. Yep, but that's pretty much it. All right, that's the end of this video, fellas. Take it easy, take care. As you always know, deuces. This is a Crooked Finger production. We are OUT out of here.